we are live and we need to do a couple tests here. Jessica, hello to the broadcast. Jen, can you all hear me, first of all? This will be as short or as long as you want it, Blue 127. We got Jen, we got Jessica. First time? Oh my gosh. Okay, who can hear me? Jessica, Jen, can you hear me? And can you hear John's squeaky chair?
Okay, can you hear me speak?
We're waiting for somebody. Can you hear us? Maybe they can't hear, that's why they're not answering. Hell, go, Johnny, go. You know, I heard that if I sing a song, you know how horrible I sing, that's a copyright infringement. Is that crazy or what?
Yep.
I heard that if you do it for 30 seconds, you won't get caught. Less than 30 seconds, you won't get caught.
Okay.
I sing all the time. I don't know. I guess I have such small subscribership, nobody reports me or whatever. Still,
Okay.
Can you hear us? Can you hear me? Talk about it. Well, John, I have already got tons of questions because as good luck or bad luck, whatever it is, there is a ton of live tarot people going live right now. So it's hard. I don't know, Tarot Tuesdays, maybe the two T's come together. But, and plus I only got like 200 subscribers. So, anyway, to my point, I got a little bit more Instagram followers and I asked them for questions if they couldn't come. So I do have lots of questions. And to be clear, you're not taking questions to read the tarot, right?
I'm not doing readings, no.
Okay. So this is for people that love the tarot and want their questions answered. And John, if you want to go back, it's the video with the flowers on the front of mine. We introduced John and talked about his personal life a little bit. So if you want to get personal with John, look at my first video. You'll see the same. This is my tarot smock. So nobody is anybody replying to us? So you and me, we'll just have a talk by ourselves.
Sure.
You know, let's get my producer on the horn. Boy, I have so many questions for you, but I'm going to see if Jimmy would hop on and see if he can hear us. I can hear you. So that's the question? I mean, that's the answer? Hey, can you hop on and tell me if you hear us? I hear. I can hear me.
I can hear you too.
Okay. And
But I can't. But I can hear you, but I just can't. It's something to do with the chat. You try to chat, but you chat.
it won't let who chat?
Well, I mean, I can't. So I can hear you.
Okay. All right, thanks. That's my producer and husband, Randy. He can hear us, but he can't see us. But I think that's a problem of his own. So, and then Scary Harpy, I like that name, can hear us. So we're going to go ahead with that. You know, something, John, that I don't think people understand. I was going to cheat with the question and answer. Then I went back through your videos, and I was going to try to find a question that somebody posed to you years ago and write it down. And if nobody showed up with questions, that was my fallback. Your followers are so freaking loyal and loving to you. I mean, I think you would be a good person to argue with. You know, with a respect, you know, from both of us, and just a conversation, an argument. What do you think?
I don't think that's a good idea at all.
Why? Because you'd win?
Well, possibly. But no, okay, I don't really understand your question.
No, it's, okay. All right, we're in an argument already, John, and I'm just not having it. No, what I noticed, your followers are so going along the stream. They're not asking you questions, the hard questions. Like I just
Ask me a hard question.
Why? Now this isn't. I'm not a crystal collector, but you said no crystals, no.
That's right.
And oh my gosh, everybody said, "Oh, that's great, John. That's great."
No, they didn't. They didn't. Lots of people said are totally into crystals.
Yeah, because I know people who are really into crystals. So why not?
Okay,
crystals?
because I was taught that if crystals take your energy, you don't use their energy, and that's it. Either that's right, and crystals use you, or else it's wrong, and you use crystals. But the person who told me that crystals use you knew what she was talking about, so I believed her, and that's it. I mean, I don't use crystals, and I don't go in for burning incense and sage and purifying the deck and sleeping with cards under your pillow and making a personal connection with cards. I don't do any of that stuff.
Now, why not like the sleeping with the cards and the holding them and carrying them around? Why not?
Who can be bothered? Seriously. I mean, it either works or it doesn't. And if the tarot is with you and you're with the tarot, then you don't need to keep reaffirming your love, so to speak, and tell it you love it every minute. Because it's like, it's a bit, okay, partly it's materialistic. And so if you feel the need for a thing, an object, then it's a different approach to understanding. See, I on the video this morning, or the one that I uploaded this morning, I mentioned about astrology and said the astrology, as people understand it, they don't understand what's going on, because I said in the video that astrology is about how you're built and how you're meant to live as you, and not figuring out what's wrong with you and how we're going to fix you. So you're an Aquarian, I think, right?
Yeah.
As you mentioned in a comment. So when we look at you, and when we get to know you or don't get to know you, what we're doing is we're developing a certain amount of understanding of the nature of Aquarius and the nature of you. But if there's something we don't like about you, we don't try and change you, because it's you are you. Where's your moon, do you know?
Pisces.
You've got a Piscean moon. Well, you have my sympathy, but
Really?
yeah. So who was? Do you know what degree?
I don't know.
Only because the beginning of Pisces is a lot easier than the end of Pisces. The last 10 degrees is really difficult. And the thing is, people who've got the moon at the end of Pisces, they struggle and life is very difficult, and their default position is to see what's going to go wrong or what went wrong. And that made me come up with, or not come up with, but made me realize that astrology is about how people are built. You don't look at somebody with the moon at the end of Pisces and try and change them into something else. And I think it's the same with the tarot. You're you, and you're complete already. You don't need to become more complete. You don't need to do anything apart from be yourself. And the tarot and astrology will help you understand your own nature and how you're built and what works for you and what you're interested in. And you follow your own path.
Yeah. And you said the tarot and astrology, really you shouldn't mix the two because they're two different disciplines.
Yes. Well, one way of looking at it is that the tarot was developed by people for people, whereas astrology deals with extraterrestrial knowledge. Because with astrology, you're dealing with planets that are millions of miles away, and who knows what kind of influence they have on people and how it all relates. But with the tarot, you pick a card and you get an image and a picture, and you've got activity in the card, and you then relate that activity to the question that was asked to get an answer, to stimulate the beginnings of an answer. Whereas astrology is something totally different.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be, because they both seem to give you answers, you can try and mix them. But generally speaking, they're two different things, and they're not interchangeable.
So
Even, go on.
It's such a popular thing that people want to learn now. I mean, not now, I guess forever, but I'm seeing a lot with beginning tarot people. They want to add astrology to it.
I know. They ought not to. No, thing is, we've got pictures, and learn to read the picture rather than translate the tarot into something else you don't know.
Right.
Because I've mentioned this periodically, and I don't want to come across as being don't know what, but it's not argumentative. It's more. I had a good teacher, and so I just lost my train of thought there. What was what was the question? Was there a question?
I don't know. I was asking people for questions. What did I ask? I asked that people so much nowadays, and maybe it's been forever, but they're really wanting to get into astrology, and they sign up for those courses and stuff. And you have really, soured me against learning the tarot, because there's only
Against learning the tarot.
No, I'm sorry, the astrology.
Okay.
There's only so much time in my life, and I'm getting old, and I'm thinking, do I really want to undertake this huge subject? And I don't think I do now. The tarot is enough, right?
In a lot of ways, the tarot is more powerful than astrology. People think it's the other way around, but actually, the tarot is the key to everything.
Because it was written by humans, and it's about human nature, right?
Sure.
That's part of it.
It's I don't quite know how to answer that question. Ask me a question from one of the ones that you gathered.
I will.
Okay.
One that really stood out to me is, and if it's okay, I'm going to give you a certain card combination. This tarot reader was asked, she knows she's going to get proposed to. How will her marriage turn out? and she knows she's going to say yes. Okay, and she gets the devil card first, 3-card reading, devil card, then the emperor, and then the 7, this way, 7 of swords.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Go on.
So how do you give bad news, or is that the way to say it? A negative reading.
Okay. Is it negative?
I don't know. 7 of swords, the devil, and the emperor.
Well, why is it negative? You tell me.
Well, another one of his questions was he just kind of froze. So, so why did he freeze? Why I would freeze is just the nature of these cards, and then in combination with each other and the question. Now, maybe, go ahead.
It was a woman who asked the question.
It was a woman who asked the question, and the reader was a man.
Okay. So, I can kind of understand why the reader might think it's bad news, but I think that gets us back to what is our philosophical position when it comes to reading cards, because you've got the emperor there. So who is she going to marry? She's going to marry somebody who's got 3 characteristics, one represented by the devil. So sometimes he's going to be nasty and bad. Also the emperor, who is somebody who is ambitious to run an enterprise or to go places or to do big things. And with the 7 of swords, somebody who's also going to be tempted to take shortcuts or to do something that's not quite honest, maybe, or rather than dishonest, maybe it's not quite above board. And also, if you look at the devil card, we've got the man and the woman. So she's going to marry somebody who doesn't really understand women.
Okay, wow.
Is one way of looking at it. And that's because he doesn't understand people. So she, the woman, if she understands, okay, my husband, my future husband, doesn't really understand people, how am I going to deal with that? If he gets annoyed with me, I'm going to understand that it's only because he doesn't know what he's doing. Not that he does know what he's doing and he's deliberately punishing me, for instance, but it's just that he's not that knowledgeable about women and about marriage and about partnerships.
Right.
Because you've got this emperor there. He knows how to run things his way because he's the emperor. It's the back there, right? So he knows how to sit on a throne and give orders and run people and control people. He knows that side of it. And it was upright, so he does it well. But so you sort of talk around the subject and give the questioner a better understanding of what she's about to deal with and the kind of person she's about to deal with. And maybe at the same time, you give her some hints or some suggestions about how to get him to understand women.
Chances are she probably knows this a little bit about what she's getting into.
Okay, then it's confirmation that that she's not going to be able to change him, but so she should maybe study a little bit on how to teach people or how to get people to understand better.
Yeah.
And also that 7 of Swords can be. They should both become vegetarians.
Vegetarians? Why?
Yep. Because lots of people are allergic to wheat and other foodstuffs, and it sends them mental. I don't mean certifiably mental, but it changes their mood. So they can be in a good mood or in a reasonable mood, but a lot of people are allergic to all sorts of things that they don't know they're allergic to. And by eating or drinking that, whatever it is, it upsets their mood and makes them more susceptible to seeing things the wrong way or to behaving in a more, in a less reasonable way. One thing you can do, Okay, you can try this with people. And what you do is you stand with your hands to your side. Right, if I can stand up, okay?
Okay.
I'm moving it. You stand like this, right? And you get somebody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, you get somebody to stand beside you and try and lift your arm away from your side, okay? So you sort of measure your resistance. Okay, so if I'm standing like this and somebody tries to pull my arm away, I resist, and I can probably keep my arm at my side. Then what you do is you put a little bit of the food that you're testing under your tongue.
Wow.
So let's say I want to know, am I allergic to cheese? I put a little bit of cheese under my tongue, and I get the person to try and pull my arm away to the side again. If I'm not allergic, I can resist. If I am allergic, you'll be amazed how easy it is.
gosh.
Your arm will just flip up into the air.
Oh my gosh, we're going to add dietitian to your.
Well, it's called it's a version of kinesiology,
Really?
and so it's a way of testing. I mean, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not saying this is scientifically verifiable, but you might want to try it and see what you discover, and then it's up to you to decide whether you want to keep eating that thing that you might be allergic to, or else if you get the idea that you're allergic to cheese, you can go to a doctor or somebody like that and get it actually tested
Right.
and discover if you're allergic to that particular thing. And if you are, understand that it's causing you to behave in a maybe an irrational way, and you're not in as good shape as you think you are.
Yeah. It's amazing to me how, me as well, I'm in this category. I'm trying to get better, but how we don't understand that food is food is fuel, and food affects us. And I'm learning. I'm learning, Jimmy.
Okay.
Before I forget, we've got the tarot book.
I recognize that.
Do you? So you can figure out answers
Yep.
by Johnny Be Good. John
Yep.
Ballantrate. I don't know how to do that. Okay. And also, somebody asked me, before I forget, do you do personal tarot readings?
If you go to johnballantrate.com, you'll find all the information there.
Oh, good. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, go out and get this book. I don't like to read online. I like a book that I can scribble in and
Yep.
stuff. So you can buy the book on Amazon, or you can get it online if you want to do that. Okay, so let me look at the chat. We've got a couple questions. Jessica asked, "Why should you use reverse cards? Why use reverse cards?" Let me show that.
Okay. Because sometimes there are delays in life, and sometimes there are glitches, and sometimes things don't go the way you expect. Not so much the way you want, but the way you expect. A reverse card will immediately give you the idea this is not going to go as expected. But how do you get that kind of information if you don't use reverse cards? I've never seen it done. You can look at combinations of cards and maybe get an idea that way, but it's not as easy. Whereas if you get a reverse card, something isn't quite right, or it depends if it's past, present, or future. Maybe it's for the future. Something is not going to work out the way you think. So the Six of Cups. Okay, the Emperor. Those three cards that you just showed. If the woman had got the Emperor reversed, the husband thinks he's more capable than he actually is. He thinks he can be an emperor and run things, and he ought to be obeyed, but it's upside down, so he isn't as capable as he thinks he is. How are you going to get that information, assuming it's correct, from a card that's not reversed?
Yeah. The only thing that I have seen is, like, they call it a challenging position rather than reverse position, or it's in the spread, whatever's in the spread, so you can get a negative reaction with the position in the spread and also the cards around it. But I see your point. Yeah.
It's too complicated.
Yeah.
To do it another way, okay, yes, you can have, because they talk about how if you've got cups between batons, then that's unfortunate for cups. But it becomes it's like in older books they'll tell you choose a significator, and you've got for a man with black hair and dark eyes, you choose the King of Pentacles. But what happens if you get a man with blonde hair and dark eyes? What do you do?
Right.
There isn't a card that represents, or a woman with blonde hair and blue eyes, or blonde hair and brown eyes. They don't. You can't do it.
Yeah.
So it's the same with not using reverse cards and trying to judge the strength or weakness of a card, and it's challenging. What does challenging mean anyway?
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Jessica. We had another one. Is there any card you find its meaning to you is significantly different with the book's meaning? Is there any card that you find that you have a definition that's different from the traditional booklet or little white book or whatever?
That's hard to answer, because I think that what a card means depends on the question. So I tend not to, like some things, the Nine of Cups is a wish card. So, and I tell people that if it comes up. So
Yeah.
with the Nine of Cups upright, your wishes will come true. With the Nine of Cups upside down, they won't come true. And that's a sort of general idea. But a lot of the time, like that thing, what I was saying about the Emperor reversed, he's not as capable as he thinks he is. You're not going to find that in a book anyway.
Right.
So I tend to find that I think it's better and more helpful to a questioner to know the question and to look at the card and to figure out what sense the card makes to answer that question that was asked. So I tend not to agree or disagree with what books say, but I have to say I can't remember the last time I looked at a book.
Really?
I mean, I did learn meanings with Eden Gray in the very beginning, but that goes back to 1979.
So that's something that you encourage, is to find your own meaning or process. Like you read the meaning and then you forget about it, kind of, and you look at the cards and you see what the picture is, and kind of with the three of those things you kind of make up your own meaning or feel what's right.
I think you take your lead from the picture. That's different from making up your own meaning.
Okay.
Because making up your own meaning, you can talk about things that are totally unrelated to the card, but that mean something to you. That's not
Right.
what we do. Whereas if you look at the Emperor, for instance, upright and reversed, you're dealing with somebody more mature, powerful, capable. An emperor has an empire who's good at running things, and it could be the head of a condo, or it could be the CEO of a company, or it could be a successful politician, for instance. Or maybe it's just somebody in your street who gets things organized. So, but you're dealing with somebody who is capable and forceful, if need be, and firm, and maybe somebody that other people go to for advice or for information. But if it's upside down, you're dealing with somebody who thinks they're like that, but they're not as good as they think they are. And again, depending on what the question was, you would automatically talk about, maybe the question is about a business. So you would look at the Emperor upright or reversed from the point of view of somebody running a business. Whereas if the question is about a relationship, You look at the Emperor upright in reverse from the point of view of somebody involved in an ideally equal partnership.
Okay.
So, whereas in a business, you haven't got an equal partnership. In a business, you've got somebody who has to make decisions, maybe make tough decisions at times, and they're good at it or they're not. But with a question about marriage, then you're not dealing with I suppose in some relationships you are dealing with one person who makes all the decisions and everybody has to just obey. But that's kind of 100 years ago.
Yeah. The card that I found, I don't know, different, but I thought I had it here. But judgment. So, well, a lot of the cards are very religious in overtones, but the judgment card is the one that stumped me at first. Of course, I can't.
Okay.
Find it. What do you think about the judgment card?
I like it only because there's people in coffins, and the lids have been removed from the coffins, so that it's freedom. No, it's freedom. It's it's new beginnings and it's growth, and
They
it's
look dead.
but they're not anymore. And it's a bit like anything. I mean, you've got. I'm trying to see what's behind you. Let's say you've got a photograph in a frame, and you drop it, and the glass breaks. The frame's dead. What are you going to do? Maybe you're going to throw it out, or maybe you're going to resurrect it, and you're going to put that same picture in a new frame. And so it's a rebirth and renewal of something that was damaged. So death can mean physical death, but it also means things have ended up. Maybe that the photograph that you've got behind you, maybe you haven't looked at it for 20 years. So it's still there, but
This one, which is probably not what you meant, but
no.
this one is. What do you think this would be? If this was a tarot card, what would it be?
I can't see it. What is it? I don't know.
Strength.
Oh.
That's a strength card from Anna Turin. I'm not crying. It's hay fever.
Okay.
Thank you, Blue 127. And this is so kind of like the death card, right? It's a renewal, transformation, freedom.
Yeah, but it's not like the death card.
It's not like the death card.
Well, death is death. Whereas judgment is renewal. With death, you have to deal with endings. But with judgment, you're dealing with new beginnings. So it's different.
Okay. I'll give you that. Let's go. Hi, Gene Simmons, the founder of KISS. And
Gene Simmons.
yeah. Okay, but wait a minute. Oh, back up. Ron thank you, Jessica. And Blue 127. I've got Ron Harper. What is spirit to you relating to the tarot? Spirit. Let me preface this by saying I kind of know when I look at readers on YouTube, and some of them are my friends, just over YouTube, they say spirit is telling me, or and all your lessons are very practical and pragmatic, and very rare, if ever, have I heard you say spirit. So to answer this question, what is spirit to you relating to tarot?
Nothing. I've never said spirit does this or spirit says that.
I don't think you ever.
I've never said it, ever. It's not.
So do you?
I
used to read in front of people, like not online, and I felt there was a person, me, the cards, and I also felt something else. I don't know if you want to say God. I never used spirit. I never used God, but I thought there was something else. Maybe it was just the energy between me and the querent, but you don't. So
I don't go that way, so to speak. I mean, only because I've sort of I'm not a fan of psychic impressions, because psychics can be totally right, but most of the time they're totally wrong. But if you've got a reputation as a psychic, then you have to be right all the time. I remember listening years ago to a psychic on a blog talk radio show, whatever it was. And so the psychic was on answering people's questions. And this woman called in and said she wanted to know about getting married again or getting married. And the psychic told her she was going to meet somebody at her church. And the woman said, I don't go to church.
oh,
And the psychic said, well, you're going
start
to.
going.
So, but the thing is, the woman obviously doesn't go to church and was not going to meet somebody through a visit to a church. But the psychic had to be right, and had to turn it around. That there was another one about in that same show, somebody wanted to know about a check coming through the mail. And the psychic talked about how it wasn't going to happen, and it was, don't depend on it. And it turned out, the woman explained that it was a monthly disability check that she got from an insurance company, and it was a couple of days late. It wasn't like, I've been promised this, and is it going to ever happen? It was a regular occurrence, but the psychic didn't want to know. And so psychics,
You're a bit of a skeptic.
Well,
Is that fair?
The thing is, psychic ability is ruled by the moon, and the moon changes quickly. And so sometimes you're right, but you can just as easily be wrong. And if this goes back to look at the card and take your lead from the picture on the card and talk and give the meaning. Whereas if you just pick something out of the air or from your imagination and talk and say that's the answer, I don't trust that. Whereas if you show me a card, or if I show somebody a card and get them to talk about what's going on in the card or what it will turn into, then I would have confidence that they're talking the truth and they're being correct and accurate in what they talk about. Whereas if you're depending on you and your intuitive psychic ability alone, that's no basis for confidence in a high percentage of cases. Sometimes you're going to be right, but what is that? A stopped clock is right twice a day. And it is.
So in the same vein, like mediumship, do you kind of put them in the same pile as psychics?
I don't know that many mediums. I know one that I used to, but I don't know. I like
Do you believe in ghosts?
I suppose so. I don't see ghosts, but
You dead people.
I don't know about ghosts and goblins.
I'll have to tell you about my dowsing rod experiment
Okay.
later. I'll do it later.
Okay.
We've got questions. Thank you, Ron Harper. We've got Jim. I know this guy. Significator. Should you use? When to use? Should you use a significator?
Yes. When I do a reading, I ask a person to choose a number between 1 and 9 and a number between 0 and 22. And that gives me two major trumps to talk about. And I talk about those major trumps and paint a kind of picture of the current situation that the questioner is in and what's coming up and what they're meant to do in that next period. And that's the start for the reading, partly because it gives its input from them. to
Right.
get the ball, to start the ball rolling rather than just input from me. And so otherwise, if you're not going to do that, pick a card at random and choose and talk about what it shows. And it's a way of orienting the questioner to their current situation. Because somebody can come in wanting to know about a relationship, but maybe they've got something else on their mind
Yeah.
that they hadn't realized or that they had been pretending didn't exist. And so if you pick a card at random and talk about that and what's going on in the picture, you may get a response from the questioner, or you may discover that you come back to it later. So yes, I think we should use significators because it gives you an idea of who you're dealing with, or it gives the questioner an idea of the shape that they're in at the time of asking the question.
So you went through 1 to 9 and 0 to
22.
yeah. So what about using court cards? You said before, like,
It's too confusing.
too confusing, yeah.
I mean, some people do, but
Personalities may be fit if you know the person.
well, I know, but then it gets into signs of the zodiac, and
Okay.
you can't do that because there are 12 signs of the zodiac, but 16 court cards.
Right.
So there is no correlation.
Okay.
So does that answer Jim's question?
Jim, does that answer your question? Thank you. Gene Simmons, the founder of KISS, has deigned our existence. And he says, how do you read page cards? He has trouble. Gene Simmons has trouble with page cards.
Is this the real Gene Simmons?
I don't know. Is this
He's
the
going to rock and roll all night.
We were playing Johnny Be Good. Gene, can you verify if this is the real Gene Simmons?
Okay, we ought to know. This is the thing where a psychic would know whether
Right.
this is the real Gene Simmons.
It may be.
But anyway, page cards.
Yes.
Pages represent young people. So it can be children or somebody young and think about when you're 11. What were you like when you were 11? You were
Fun.
immature,
Happy-go-lucky.
fun, happy-go-lucky, but also you didn't really know what you were doing, but you had maybe big ideas. That's how to look at a page. So depending on the question. So am I going to do well in business? And I get the page of anything. Yes, because the card is upright, but you've got a lot to learn. So you look at the page of whatever the suit is, and maybe it's a page of swords. You have to get organized. You have to learn how to cut out, because it's a sword. You have to learn how to battle people who are going to try and talk you out of doing something that you know makes sense, or you're going to have to learn to cut out dead wood, or cut out bad habits, or cut out people that are not cooperating in the business. But because a page, you will make mistakes, but learn from them and you go from strength to strength.
But
So that's
they're
what
not messages? I heard
No.
they're messages.
knights are messengers, not pages. People say pages are messengers, but they're not. Because think of it this way: if you have got an important message to give to somebody, are you going to send a 10-year-old
Right.
or are you going to send a 25-year-old?
Right.
You send a 25-year-old a knight. You don't send a 10-year-old a page.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and from the point of view of messages from spirit, or messages from the great beyond, or messages from
God.
whoever, God, I don't know. Are you going to send it?
Me. I don't know about you, John.
I would go with knights rather than
Nights
pages, only because pages are inexperienced.
fickle.
And also, think of it this way. A page grows up to be a queen, and a knight grows up to be a king. It's another way of looking at pages. They're like the younger version of queens.
Right.
So they're learning about how to be in control, maybe ultimately. But it goes back to masculine and feminine.
Right.
Right. So masculine signs of the zodiac are masculine energies go out and make things happen. Feminine signs respond to circumstances. If you've ever watched a man shovel a driveway, do you have snow in Ohio?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let's say your driveway is covered in snow. You get 2 feet of snow. Okay, a man will go out and dig it out and be exhausted for an hour. A woman will go out and do it patiently and slowly and end up with a nice clean driveway but not exhausted. And that's the difference between men and women. One way of looking at it. So men will go out and exhaust themselves. Women will understand the circumstances and do things better. Calibrate, sure. That's the thing about, look at it's a man's world. And look at the state of the world.
I know.
Imagine if women were in charge.
Yes. I've often wondered that.
Seriously. Imagine if women were, like, if you look at politicians, imagine if there were like 95% women making decisions about what's important and how to go about doing things.
You might get something done.
Yeah, and also it would be better.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, you can't be any worse than the way politicians are going at the moment.
That reminds me of a question that I had. Do you do like political readings or readings of the times, or I see a lot of that on YouTube where you just read like the president or what's going on in the news. They kind of just pick a subject and read on it.
No, I don't. No.
There's one lady that has the tarot. Oh, you would not like this because she does tarot scopes. So it's astrological scopes with the tarot involved. Her name is Queen Z, I think. I watch her. She comes on late at night sometime on YouTube. And yeah, it's just, she has each card for like the president and Putin, and it's crazy.
I have seen some of those, but they usually didn't work out the way they were supposed to.
Yeah. Let's see. Gene, I don't know if he's authenticated himself, but we've got another one.
Don't tell me it's Paul McCartney.
Oh, I would love Paul McCartney. Come on. You know, I met Gene Simmons.
Okay.
Anybody who wants to go see my Instagram account and has the same name, it shows a meeting with me and the actual Gene Simmons. Now, I don't know if he, follows me because I'm so gorgeous, but how do you read multiple cards? Do you read them individually or do you continue them to get a meaning? Can you see that?
I don't understand the question. What do you mean multiple cards?
I don't know. Max Ohio, thank you for coming. How do you read multiple cards? Do you read them individually or do you combine them into a meaning to get a meaning? So maybe do you create a story or do you individually read them individually?
Okay, if you go back to how we began with the devil, the emperor, and the seven of swords.
Right.
Because the woman wanted to know how was the marriage going to go. So what do you do with, you can look at it both ways. On the one hand, you're dealing with 3 different types of behavior. Because it's a question about a person, you can have the devil is one way of behaving, the emperor is another way of behaving, and the seven of swords is another way of behaving. Or you can look at those 3 cards as being different situations or conditions that you're going to have to experience in marriage. So on the one hand, that you or the husband are going to be in control and successful. Whereas with the devil, you're going to have to deal with problems periodically. And with the Seven of Swords, you'll be tempted, for instance. So you can look at all three individually, but then maybe if you get an idea of, so with those three cards, it seems like the Emperor is one card, the Devil and the Seven of Swords belong together in some kind of a way. Because if you think about if you think about the morality of the people, the Emperor is ideally honest and above board, whereas the devil is going to take shortcuts or try and con people. And the Seven of Swords is also maybe running off with something that doesn't belong to you. So in some ways, it looks like the woman is going to have to deal with a double-sided kind of relationship. On the one hand, totally honest and above board and hardworking and disciplined, the Emperor's side, but the husband is also going to want to take drugs and do illegal stuff, whatever that happens to be. Or maybe he's going to be offered some kind of criminal or illegal activity to do with his business, and he's going to take it and get into trouble because of it. But so looking at the three cards, two of them seem to go together and one is different.
Right.
So you can look at each of the three individually as people or conditions or situations or challenges or lessons, whatever it happens to be, whatever you're comfortable talking about. Because you could look at the three cards as being a lesson. So when it comes to your future husband and your marriage, you're going to have to learn about how to be in control, the Emperor, about how to deal with underhanded activity, the devil, and how to take it easy. Because the Seven of Swords person looks like they're rushing away. Instead of stopping and examining what's going on, they've taken a quick glance and they're running away. So the three lessons for the women to learn are be solid and stable and grounded, the Emperor. Learn how to deal with the devil. Learn how to deal with people who are not honest. And also with the Seven of Swords, learn how to take it easy and how to be patient and how to not jump to conclusions and how not to feel you need to rush.
Is there some significance with the fact that there are two standing?
Sure, but it depends on the question.
Yeah.
What significance you would give to those two. It looks like the Seven of Swords is 2 and 5.
Right.
So part of the situation is stable and grounded because they're in the ground and ready for action, but most of it is up in the air or most of it is unsteady.
I always thought that even though this gets a bad rap, that he's really skillful
Possibly.
in holding those.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought that even though he may have been a scamp, he's very skillful at what he does. So, okay. Thank you, Mazda. I got it. Thank you so much. We're behind. Travis, thank you, Travis. He likes the explanation of judgment. He likes your explanation.
Good. Well, feel free to use it anytime you want.
You can use it, Travis. Blue 127 says, I see the 5 and 7 are both about conflict. For example, 5 of Wands, 7 of Wands, 5 of Swords, 7 of Swords. How can I best distinguish them? So,
which cards would
Wands, and so he's comparing the 5 and the 7s are in Wands and Swords are about conflict. What's the difference between them? Suits.
you might want to look at the five. Which deck are we using? If we're using the Rider deck.
We're going to say we're using the Rider deck. Blue
Okay, so
127. If you're not using that deck, let me know.
okay, if we're looking at the 5 of Batons in the Rider deck, then we've got 5 young men sort of competing with each other. So it's somehow it's about competition rather than conflict. And maybe that would be useful to think about. Instead of it being conflict, it's competition, which may involve conflict, but not automatically. It's a different kind of dynamic.
And they seem to be boys. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Am I right or wrong?
Somehow it looks like teenagers trying to be tough or trying to give the impression that they're older, more mature than they actually are. Right. But somehow it's think of it as competition. Whereas with the 7 of Batons, you've got, I don't know if there's conflict in it, because it's more like it looks like there's a threat maybe from below, but they're not involved in actual conflict. So maybe the threat of something. But at the same time, as I mentioned in a video a while ago, the fellow above on the 7 of Batons is way above these people. They can't really hurt him, because all they can do is maybe tap him with the end of the baton. They can't really. It's not like I happen to. If you've seen the TV show The Walking Dead, have you seen The Walking Dead?
I haven't. My sister is a diehard. But
who are we talking to? Blue?
127 again.
Okay, so if Blue 127 has ever seen The Walking Dead, there's a character in it called Morgan. And Morgan doesn't like to kill people, but he likes to use a stave. He's got a walking stick that he uses as a weapon. And in the same kind of a way, the fellow on the 7, okay, he could be Morgan in The Walking Dead. He's got a stave. He doesn't want to hurt people, but he's going to protect himself. So maybe the 7 of Batons is about self-protection rather than conflict. And so self-protection, but you have to wonder, do you really need to protect yourself? Can the people actually hurt you? And it looks from the picture like they can't really. You may be overestimating the influence or the impact that other people can have on you and your situation with the 7 of Batons.
And then the 2 5s.
Oh, okay. So we're looking at. I can't remember what the question was. Are we saying that there's conflict with the?
He's having problems with the wands and the.
Okay, if you look at the 5 of Swords, again, going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, look at the picture and see what's going on. Right. So in the 5 of Swords, we've got a winner, a loser, and a middleman. The winner's at the front. Doesn't look that happy, but he won anyway. We've got the loser in the distance, and we've got somebody going off to comfort the person in the distance. So you've got different roles to play. So with the 5 of Swords, you can you switch those again, Laurie? Okay, that's a 5 of Swords. So with the 5 of Swords, the conflict can be within yourself. Are you going to do what you need to do to win? Are you going to understand that there has to be a loser, and you're going to make it as easy as possible for the loser to not feel bad? And that could be the conflict where you're having to figure out what kind of role you're going to play. Or it could be that there's more than one individual involved in the conflict. It's not just conflict between a winner and a loser, but there's a third factor that has to be considered as well. So who's the winner here? Is it the person who seems to be the winner, or is it the person who is going to be comforted because they lost, or even though they lost?
Right.
So I'm not sure. I can see conflict with the 5 of Swords, less so with the 5 of Batons.
Now, are you okay with, I know astrology and tarot shouldn't be mixed in your opinion. But are you okay with saying that pentacles are earth,
No.
cups are water, battens are what are earth,
Fire.
air, fire, and water? Yeah. Why not?
Okay. Because
Go ahead.
pentacles are money, right?
Or
How do-
I say
how-
or resources.
Okay, think of it as money, because money is, everybody knows what money is. You don't know what resources are.
Right.
Okay, so let's say the pentacles is money. How do you make real money? You don't do it through hard work.
Okay.
You do it through ideas and through mental development and mental skill. That's why pentacles relate to air, because pentacles is air,
Pentacles
not
relate to air.
not
That is
earth.
my worldview.
Okay, good for me. So pentacles is air, and swords represent earth.
Oh, I got it right.
Water is cups, obviously, and batons is fire. But if you need to go with four elements, pentacles is air, is not money. It's not,
Say why again. Why is pentacles air?
because how do you make money? You don't make money through hard work. Swords, you make it through ideas, and ideas are air.
Right.
That's it.
Wow. Okay. Okay, and in that same vein, I promised Jason I would ask you, can you time? Can you tell a person a time frame through the tarot?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a video on why you shouldn't do this, because you can spoil people's lives.
I've
So-
seen that video.
Okay, so somebody wants to know, am I going to meet somebody this year? And you pick a card. If you tell them, yes, it'll be the week before Christmas, between now and then, they can be imagining what it's going to be like and what they'll say to each other, what they'll be feeling like, what the weather will be like, what they'll be wearing, what the other person will be wearing. They come up with all these details because they can't help themselves but imagine and live out the moment before it's even happened. And so if the moment comes along, or when the moment comes along, they've already got preconceived ideas about what's going to happen. And if it doesn't go to form, if it doesn't go the way they imagined, they're going to think it's not happening. So you can give people problems by telling them a date, because they'll do an awful lot with the date and wreck it for themselves. But if you want to know a time, maybe what you do is, okay, depending on the question, if it's like, when should I go for a promotion? Okay, pick a card, and you're looking for a mate. Okay, let me just pick a card here.
A card at random.
Yeah, pick a card at random, Laurie. What do you get?
Pick a card at random. I get Page of Cups.
Forget that. You can't do it with pages.
Okay.
You can't do it with court cards. So that's telling you, you want to know when. I get the Page of Cups. I can't tell you. 7. So 7 of Cups. 7 within 7 months. So when should I go for the promotion? This is July. So August, September, October, November, December, January. Look for something next February. That's 7 months.
And are you saying months because of cups?
No, I'm saying months because maybe it's, if the person's wondering about a promotion eventually, 7 months. Whereas if to say, I've got these various ideas that I'd like to get the promotion, when should I do it? Maybe then in that case it's 7 weeks.
Oh, 7 weeks.
Okay, because 7 days, they're not there yet, but 7 weeks. So that's like, this is July, August. The end of August, start looking seriously at the end of August. And that's one way of looking at, because you get the number from the card, and then you relate the number to again, it could be days, it could be weeks, it could be months, it could be years.
So
But you sort of get an idea from the question and the state of mind of the questioner and their anticipation, whether it's something that's going to happen quickly or whether they're looking for an immediate development, or whether they're kind of thinking about it and they don't mind becoming clear and sure, and so them are looking at, let's say, 7 months.
So you're kind of like being a body language expert, because I think like
Well, no, I most of the time you just know from the question whether the person's actively looking or whether they're just thinking about it.
What about, that's my birth card?
The star.
Yeah. What? When? If you had to have a when am I gonna renew my vows? When will he let me?
Don't renew your vows.
That's just your personal advice.
Yep.
He's a prince of a guy.
Well, okay. Why spoil it?
I was just thinking.
Why take the chance of spoiling it? Because there's a birth chart for a marriage. So when you're born and you've got a birth chart, you say I do. There's a birth chart for that marriage, for that moment.
Ooh. So
Okay.
So
Hang on. So if you get married at a certain time, you set up what will happen in the marriage. And if you're happy with it and you choose and you renew your vows, you take the chance that you're going to wreck what you've got. So if you're married and you're happy, don't renew your vows.
Well, it would be like our 40th. We're like going on 37 years.
But you said renew your vows, which is like a formal public ceremony.
Yeah.
Don't
do it. Don't.
Well, if you do it and it goes wrong, don't say you weren't warned.
Okay, so that I got so excited. So, will you do? You said to go to johnballantree.com.
Yep.
Will you do someone's chart as well?
I tend to. It depends what they want to know. I'll tend to tell them things from their birth date that are valuable or useful for the question. I mean, things like there's certain things like if you have Mars in an air sign, you can't handle stress. So if you get if let's say you're in a stressful situation and you get Mars in a fire sign, you can scream and yell and get rid of stress. If you get Mars in an earth sign, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, you can go and dig a ditch or go to a gym and get rid of stress. If you have Mars in water,
oh my gosh.
If you have Mars in water, you can cry tears, water, and get rid of stress. If you have Mars in an air sign, in Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius, you cannot get rid of stress. You can't talk out stress. So what you do is, when you're in a stressful situation, you get out of it. You make your excuses and leave. And go back with the people or with the situation when you're settled down. Deep breathing is good, where you breathe in, count of 4, breathe out, count of 4, breathe in a number of times. So if you're in a stressful situation, in a meeting, excuse yourself, go into the hall, breathe in and out a few times deeply, then go back into the meeting. That was stressful, and it won't be as bad. But with people with Mars, Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra, if you have Mars in an air sign, you cannot handle stress. There comes a point, we're born with an ability to handle stress. It's called a stress packet. When you've used it all up, it's gone. And that's why people suffer from PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, from if they go to war or they're in the military and they come back, they're wasted. They've just used up all their ability to handle stress.
Yeah.
And people with Mars in an air sign are much more prone to difficulty. And so they ought to take care of themselves more so than people with Mars in another sign of the zodiac. So I might, if the person's got Mars in an air sign, I might mention this in passing before I get to the numbers that the person chooses, before I get to the questions.
So I can't be as knowledgeable as you. How many years would it take me to learn astrology the way you know it?
About 70. Seriously.
Okay, so you said my marriage had a birth date.
Well, every marriage is a birth date.
So I'm not saying to do it, but can you go back on October 5th, 1991 and see and I can confirm or deny whether it's true?
Well, you can, but I'm not going to do it just now.
No, I know, but can you?
Well, it can be done, yeah.
It can be done. See, that fascinates me. You're wasting your talents with just the tarot, John.
No. The thing is, it's too complicated.
But you know it.
Well, I started this in 1973.
With a great teacher.
Well, the teacher came later in like 1978, and I've been given a lot of, and I've also spent a lot of time wondering about it and also not wasting my time, which is what everybody out there in the internet does.
What do you mean?
Because they think they know what they're doing, but they don't. And people get annoyed when I say that, but
I could imagine.
People
would be annoyed.
It's true, because people don't know about marriage charts, for instance.
Right.
They don't know about period charts, because different periods of life, different ages in life are ruled by different planets. So the first 7 years is ruled by the moon, 7 to 15 is ruled by Mercury, 15 to 24 ruled by Venus, 24 to 34 the Sun, 34 to 45 is Mars, 45 to 57 is Jupiter, 57 to 70 is Saturn, 70 to 84 Uranus, and so on. So depending on where your natal Mars is, then that describes the nature of your life and its priorities and its dynamics between ages 34 to 45, and it changes when you turn 45. And it can be a totally different life experience depending on the sign position of Jupiter. But people get so used to behaving a certain way from age 34 to 45, they don't realize they're meant to change at 46, 47.
People have midlife crisis?
Well, it's partly so, but people involved in astrology don't know any of this. And yet, I may say this in a video, but how do you know that somebody doesn't know much astrology? They call themselves an astrologer. And it's true. And I was going to say this on a video, but people get upset about some of the inconsequential things I say. But the thing is, William Lilly, who was this great English astrologer in the 17th century England, who wrote Christian astrology and various other things, he referred to himself as a student in astrology. Even William Lilly didn't call himself an astrologer. Yet there's all these people out there on Twitter and on the internet and YouTube call themselves astrologers, and they're not. They know a tiny amount, but
they're probably happy in what you're harshing their buzz.
I know.
See, that's why I decided not to delve into astrology, because you keep saying
well, good. There's karma. You know,
where did you get your tarot knowledge? Is what Mazda Ohio asked.
Where did I get it? I was born with it.
You were born with it, but you also studied with a great teacher, right?
Yes and no. She told me what to do and left me alone to do it. She told me a few things to do, and then left me alone. So I didn't have formal lessons, and and instruction. She told me, she gave me the fool's journey, and she said the fool is walking along the road, and the first person he meets is the magician. What happens? That was it. So that's the kind of teaching I had, where I was left to my own devices. But when I say I was born with it, I have the moon. This is getting very astrological.
I know.
I've got the moon at 12 degrees of Cancer. So anybody born with the moon between 10 and 20 degrees of Cancer has an inbuilt understanding of the tarot.
That's crazy.
Well,
And your thing that you uploaded today, your content was about astrology, and you said, I don't know if I should say that.
well, I know. I don't want to confuse people.
Yeah. But it's intriguing. Blue,
Oh.
127.
Okay, before we get to blue 127, when I said there's karma, what I mean is, I can't quite think of the answer, but it has to do with, it takes 3 lifetimes to learn astrology.
Wow.
You can't learn it in a couple of months or a couple of years. And so you're taking a totally beautiful subject that gives the answer to everything, and you're messing with it if you call yourself an astrologer. And that's why I said, when you said you weren't going to learn it, I said, good. So only because we're better off a little, you know that expression, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. That's what you're dealing with astrology.
So
If you get a little knowledge, you become dangerous to yourself and to other people, because you'll misguide them, you'll mislead them, you'll give them answers that aren't true, you'll fool yourself into thinking you know what you're doing, that you know everything, that you're capable. I was thinking earlier today, do you know Photoshop?
Yes.
You know all Photoshop?
No.
Okay, but you know what Photoshop is?
Yes.
It's a photo manipulation
Right.
program. Okay, so let's say people know how to open Photoshop and import a photograph, and then they can make a few adjustments, like they can change the exposure and the contrast and the brightness, and that's okay. But then when they get into layer masks and blend modes, then they don't know. That's not intuitive. They don't know any of that, so they can't. You can learn Photoshop. It takes a long time, and people don't mind spending a long time learning and developing a stability and developing a basic understanding, and then going on and introducing more complex features like blend modes, right? But people think because, oh, you're an Aries, I know about Aries, they think they know everything, and they don't.
Yeah.
I mentioned somewhere, if you imagine that thing I mentioned before about Mars being in an air sign, and different planets ruling different periods of life.
Right.
Each individual point is a grain of sand on a beach, but there's a beach full of sand. So are you going to take 3 lifetimes to become familiar with the whole of the beach? Or are you going to take 1 grain of sand, assume you know everything, and start talking like you know what you're talking about? And then when somebody points out that you don't know what you're talking about, you get all annoyed with them.
Yeah.
People get really touchy and possessive of their own egos when it comes to astrology.
So if you're dealing with a person who says, I love this concept, I love the beginning phases that I'm learning, I want to learn astrology, would you recommend anything to them? As far as where to learn and how to learn, and
Do you know, as it happens, I'm thinking of putting together a course on learning astrology.
Well, good. I hope you do.
Yeah. So otherwise, there isn't anywhere to go.
There's nowhere to go.
No. If you want, no. Well,
How big
there's
is
always.
your ego, John?
How big is it?
Yeah.
No, so small you can't even see it.
You're just a Scot in a basement.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
Blue. 127.
Okay, sorry, Blue. Yes. What was your
He's
question?
apologizing for asking so many questions.
Well, that's
Don't
fine.
apologize. Do you study tarot history? If yes, which sources or book would you use or recommend? Tarot history.
I
Not
don't.
a lot about it, is there?
I did a long time ago look at books on that people wrote about the tarot. I looked at the 78 Degrees of Wisdom.
Yeah,
I looked at it and read a paragraph and stopped reading it because
really.
I didn't. It was like I wanted to do it my way, and I wanted to have my own, or not my own book, but I wanted to. I didn't want to learn somebody else's stuff, and so there were various other
Tarot
books,
history?
even the history and
Yeah.
Pamela Coleman Smith. I'm a terrible student of other people's stuff. Whereas Shakespeare, by all means, bring in Shakespeare because we can learn about the tarot. Because I think it has to do with the tarot is about people and what we're like and how we function and why we do what we do. And we can learn about that from Shakespeare and from poetry more so than we can learn about that from conclusions that somebody else drew and wrote about in a book about the tarot. See, I was going to the next video that I'm going to do, only because you mentioned today's video. I'm talking about numerology, and the number 1 is the positive sun. So let us create. 2 is the moon that reflects the light of the sun. 7 is the full moon, and 4 is the planet Uranus, which is the negative sun. So if you get the word tarot, T-A-R-O-T, and I'm going to demonstrate this in the next video, what are you dealing with the tarot? You're dealing with the negative sun, the positive sun, the full moon, no, the new moon, the full moon, and the negative sun. So tarot, the word that we're dealing with, is all the sun and the moon.
Wow.
Which is not, whereas you get a word like spirit, S-P-I-R-I-T, is 381214. So you've got a Saturn influence in spirit that doesn't exist with the tarot. So I was going to give examples of words. And the thing is, there's debate about who wrote Shakespeare's plays.
Yeah.
Right, so some people, the Stratfordians, think that Shakespeare was born in Stratford-upon-Avon and lived there, and he was an actor and he wrote the plays. There are other people who think that the real author of the Shakespeare plays was Edward de Vere, who was the 17th Earl of Oxford, and they're known as the Oxfordians, not the Stratfordians. And so there's a fellow called Alexander Waugh does videos on this. But anyway, if you go back to Elizabethan England, John Dee and others around that time period, people then were very taken with and appreciated numbers and numerology and anagrams. Yeah. And so if we go back 400 years and tell people T-A-R-O-T is these letters and these numbers and these planets, they would take us seriously. Because 400 years ago in Elizabethan England, people understood that there's more going on than meets the eye. And if you want to get below the surface, then you need to look at numbers and anagrams and numerology. So, forget why I was talking about that. But anyway, oh yeah, do I study history? No, because I think the tarot is about people and how to live properly, how to live in harmony with your own self, and how to find your own path and travel your own path. And you get that from poetry and philosophy and ancient ideas as well as modern ideas and TV shows like Morgan. in The Walking Dead with the stave and the 7 of Battens. That's a connection that I had never made before until today. That the Morgan and his character and his doubts and his inner conflict, because do you kill people and under what circumstances, or is life precious? And that's what he was taught in the TV show. But Morgan's got a stave, so we can learn about how to. Remember Sean Connery?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so Sean Connery had an interview with Albert and Cubby Broccoli and Albert Saltzman in an office in London. And he had an interview or an audition for the part of James Bond. And so they weren't sure whether he was the right Bond. And Cubby Broccoli looked out the window and saw Sean Connery crossing the street in London. And the way he walked was so lithe and power and pent up. And he thought, that's James Bond.
James Bond.
And so it was because he noticed the way he walked. And lots of men in the 60s and 70s who wanted to know how to be cool or how to be real, they modeled their own behavior on James Bond,
Wow.
on Sean Connery in the movies. So we can learn about how to live or how to make the most of ourselves in all sorts of different ways. And some of it can be done through movies or through songs. You listen to ideas in Bob Dylan, or you get Bram Tchaikovsky, Girl of My Dreams. Famous song, well, not famous song, but
Say that again,
one-
Tchaikovsky?
Bram Tchaikovsky. It's a song called Girl of My Dreams. Julie was an American girl. It's about...
What? Go ahead.
It's just a catchy song, but it can be a way of how our fantasy can help us create reality out of nothing. So to go back to Blue 123, is it 123?
27.
127. So it's history, yes and no, but I don't spend much time researching the tarot and its origins and A.E. Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith and the Golden Dawn and Aleister Crowley and all these people. I think it's more, let's each one of us. I happened to watch this thing recently on Jung's Red Book, Carl Jung. So he talked about his Red Book and how there was an interview with somebody, an expert, who said that Jung got really annoyed later in life that people were reading the Red Book and stealing his depth. And he said, the point about the Red Book is you're meant to write your own, create your own Red Book, not take somebody else's, which is what people were doing with his Red Book. It was his inner exploration of the archetypes and his psyche and all his past lives or whatever you want to do. Each one of us should write our own Red Book. And in a way, that's what we're doing with the tarot. We are in some way discovering our real self, our inner path, our reason for being here. We're discovering deep truth, or we're discovering interesting stuff, and we ought to discover it for ourselves. Or if we go that route of discovering it for ourselves, we're going to discover it.
Speaking on that, what do you think of shadow work? There is a book, Jung and Tarot by Sally Nichol. I'm using it to hold up this computer right now. But that's a book with Jung, but shadow work.
Okay, what is it? What are you using the book for?
To hold up this computer.
That's about as good as it's good for.
It's a pretty cover. I like the cover.
Well,
I read it years ago. I read it.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
good.
so-
But you found a good use for it. You didn't read it and incorporate the ideas. You're using it to prop up a computer.
Exactly.
So your instincts are correct. That's my opinion of Jungian and tarot.
But Jung proposed, didn't he propose shadow work?
Yeah, but that was okay. The thing about Jung is Jung could read French and German and English and Greek and Latin, and he read all this stuff, ancient or medieval alchemical texts, and he did all this work and he read this mythology in multiple languages. So if you've done that, okay, I'll listen to your conclusions. But if you haven't done all the work, then I'm not going to take you seriously. It's a bit like, did you ever see Jurassic Park?
Sure.
Okay, remember Dr. Malcolm, who was Jeff Goldblum,
Yes.
and he held up he said at one point that just because you can extract DNA doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
So what they're doing is they're standing on the shoulders of giants. They're standing on the shoulders of the scientists who came before them. But they didn't do the work to get the knowledge and the understanding. And that's my problem with Jungians, that they haven't done the work. They've read all of Jung, and maybe they've done some other stuff, but they haven't read the original text in French, Greek, Latin, German, and English, and who knows what else. They haven't come to those conclusions. So you can't take somebody else's conclusion and use that as a starting point for your own development, because it just leads to trouble. That's why a little knowledge is a dangerous thing.
Yeah. Okay. Shadow work, we'll call it something else. But using the tarot to find your hidden parts,
Okay.
journaling and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. The thing is, we're up against confirmation bias,
Yeah.
and so I can. This is a.
Well, discovering your confirmation bias is part of that kind of shadow work, isn't it?
It could be, but how many people do actually recognize their when they're, hate the word, when they're projecting their own problems onto the outer world.
It has to be like,
That's why Shakespeare and poetry are much better than psychology.
I was going to say they'd have to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist.
Well, Shakespeare said it all. Bob Dylan said it all in his own way as well.
I love Bob Dylan. What's your favorite Shakespeare piece or book?
Well, I'm writing a book on Hamlet.
You're writing a book on Hamlet?
Yep.
Wow. I was going to ask you, have you written other books
Uh,
aside from tarot?
I wrote an astrology book that was published by the American Federation of Astrologers years ago, but nobody ever bought
Read
it. Nobody bought it.
Nobody
Well,
bought it.
no. I went to Chicago in, I don't know when it was, to the astrology conference there.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to meet Bob Cooper and talk to him about it. But astrology is just such a terrible situation. So these people,
So intriguing.
it's like the blind leading the blind.
Oh, I don't know.
It's honestly, it's true. There's a line in Bob Dylan where, and one of his writings and drawings book, and he talks about how it begins breathing heavy and punching blindly at the blind, and that's what they're doing at astrology conferences. Sorry if you're a big fan, but
You're making enemies here.
well, not really.
I don't think you are. You're loved, which really ticks me off.
Well,
Blue 127. It doesn't tick me off. Okay, so he says you're mentioning numerology. How can I learn more about this system? So much knowledge packed in your answers. And yes, I do agree and maybe apologize that your answers are amazing, and we're probably going a little too fast, but there's such a wealth of knowledge there. How should he learn astrology? And what about what do you think about I can't believe I can't remember 369. Who is he? Who am I thinking of? 369.
Tesla?
Yes, Tesla. 369. If you understood 369, you'd know the universe.
Well, if you understood Shakespeare, you would know the universe. If you understood the tarot, you would know the universe. Okay, so numerology. What do you do?
What do you do?
Watch the last video on tarot lessons, and there's an earlier one about numbers, and I can't remember what it was. But go onto Google. This is Blue 127.
Yes.
Okay, so go to Google and type in Cairo, Cheiro. Cairo's Book of Numbers. Cairo was this Irish Scorpio fellow, Count Louis Hamon, who wrote under the name Cairo. And so he wrote this book called Cairo's Book of Numbers. And if you can get a copy of it used, it's been out of print for a long time, I think. But his system is the one to use because there are letters go with different letters go with different numbers, and one is the number of the sun. And this is what I did in the last video, where I talked about which planet goes with which number. If you have a look, start there, and then if you get stuck, send me an email, and I'll send you something back.
Okay, so John Ballantree is on YouTube, which I'll slip in his link here somewhere if I can. And then also johnballantree.com. Today's video that you uploaded talked about astrology.
It's tarot lesson. If you go to YouTube and type in tarot lesson, John Ballantree, you'll find there's 44 up there now.
Yeah.
Today was number 44.
Okay. Do you offer one-on-one lessons? Says Mazda, Ohio.
I suppose so. I don't do
Right,
one-on-one, but whatever, if somebody wants something, but I do reply to emails, apart from you, Laurie.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for acknowledging that, John.
Well, the thing is, if I don't reply at the moment that I get the email, it takes ages to get caught up. So do I do one-on-one? If somebody wants to set up a Zoom call, I'm happy to talk about the tarot. You may have noticed I'm happy to talk about the tarot. So, and I'll do this all the time if.
Awesome.
But so if you want to set up something, but I don't at this point do official, formal lesson and schedule things. I might do it in the future, but I was going to do a live stream, but I haven't got it together yet. But if that ever happens, then there could be lessons that way. But if you want to talk about the tarot, you can always phone me, or I'll phone you, or we can have a Skype call or a Zoom call or something, if you have an interest. And then we just see what happens.
Blue 127 says, I love your sarcasm.
What? Me? Sarcastic? How dare you?
No! I think we would fight well. I think we would have a good argument.
I don't think so.
Proper boundaries.
No.
Beethoven. You're not Beethoven.
Well, you did ask me about that, and I have this folder on the desktop called artwork. No, it's and I looked for it, I couldn't find it. I've got 4 external hard drives from before. I looked at every one of them, and I looked at all over the place. I could not find the folder, because I was going to send you. It's got photographs of artwork that I liked, Louise Nevelson and all sorts of people, and photographs of famous photographs and bits and pieces of architecture, and I can't find it. Otherwise, I would have sent it to you at the time. But I did spend a lot of time looking, and I couldn't find it.
I appreciate that.
But
I appreciate your effort, John.
well, I did try. I may even find, if I ever do find it, I'll let you know.
Okay.
I'll send it to you.
Well, we've gone on 1 hour and 39 minutes, and it just seems like 10 minutes.
Okay.
Blue 127 says he's really overloaded with so many new knowledge now. Look at you.
Well, good.
Yes. You're
So
amazing.
do what you can with it and keep going.
Yeah, he's a really good answerer of emails. Yeah.
Okay.
Except mine.
No.
Okay, no, I was just trying to find out what kind of art you liked, what kind of music you liked, because I don't have anybody in my life that has that kind of interest. So I was trying to spark that interest with you, John.
Well, it didn't work, did it?
Did not work. I adore you, but it did not work.
Well, it's just it's just as I say, if I don't answer at the time at that moment,
That's okay.
it's really hard to, and sometimes I can't because I'm in the middle of something.
Sure.
But I do get back to it. But all sorts of music.
Mazda, Ohio.
Oh, okay,
Mazda, Ohio just says thank you.
good.
And Blue 127 said, "Oh, I meant your collection of artwork. I mean, oh, can you share it on your Facebook page or Instagram?" He means your collection of art, but you.
Okay, I don't know if I can because I clip it from the internet, but it may be copyright. So it's one thing for me to keep it for me and look at it, but I would be asking for trouble, I think, if I were to post artwork from other people on the internet.
Oh, how do I do this? Shift. I'm trying to see. What I was gonna say is, I can make myself really small. I forget how, but I can make myself really small and you really big. So I could just lay here and sleep, and you could log into my link and just talk and do your live. That's the easy way
To do what?
to do your live. You said you wanted to do lives.
Oh, yeah, I it's too much at the moment. I've been thinking about, I don't know, I sort of do what's in front of me.
I'm trying to get this layout right, but it's not doing it. That's okay. We're about ready to end. But what I was saying is, if you wanted to do a live, I could disappear right now. You know what I mean?
Or else you could hang around and
You could hang around and do
participate.
your live.
Yeah.
But that's at another time, right? No, I'm serious. If you want to do it through me, that's fine until you get set up.
Okay, I'll think about that.
Okay. Thank you, John. Really
Okay, good.
appreciate it. I loved our conversation, and we gave everybody. I think I'll try then put your link after we're done underneath.
Okay.
But thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.